Welcome to Business English Success Stories podcast. Ready for a deep dive? Today we're tackling Bill Gates and Microsoft.
Yeah, always up for a good Microsoft story.
But we're going deeper than just the usual timeline, right?
Yeah.
We're going to see how Gates changed business, like literally the way we talk about it.
It's wild when you think about it. Words we use every day, like, what was it, bandwidth, ecosystem, totally Microsoft influenced.
Exactly. And get this, our main source today is actually another podcast, a Business English podcast episode all about Microsoft's history.
Meta.
So what are we looking for in this deep dive? Those turning points, those decisions that maybe didn't seem huge at the time, but bam, massive impact.
I'm super interested to see how Microsoft's tools themselves, like PowerPoint, how those shape the way we communicate in business.
Right, because that's something we totally take for granted now. Okay, so rewind to the 70s. Young Bill Gates encounters the Altair 8800. Clunky computer, right? Most folks saw a toy, but Gates.
He saw the future, the potential for personal computing before almost anyone.
And he didn't just dream about it. This guy was taking action. Pitched software to Altair's maker before he'd even written the code.
Confidence, much. But it also shows that strategic mind. He wasn't just a techie. He was thinking business from day one.
Total entrepreneur. Even that detail, how he took a leave of absence from Harvard. Not a dropout.
Smart. Keeping options open. And remember, the language of personal computers didn't even really exist. Gates wasn't just learning it, he was making it up as he went.
Okay, fast forward, 1980. IBM, the giant, needs an operating system for their new PC.
And they go to Microsoft, which was still pretty small fry.
So here's the kicker. Microsoft didn't have an OS.
Nope. But instead of saying no to IBM, Gates pulls off this genius move. He buys an existing OS, QDOS, for like 50 grand.
Hold up. He bought an OS just to turn around and sell it to IBM.
Not quite. He licensed it to IBM, but kept the rights to license it to everyone else too.
Whoa. Game changer right there.
Huge. That's the foundation for their whole empire. They could put their software on any computer out there.
Like he built the toll booth and everyone using a PC had to pay up.
Exactly. And there's more. Gates knew how people worked, You learn a system, you stick with it. So what'd he do? Priced MS-DOS super low. Most affordable option.
Playing the long game.
For sure. Get as many people using it as possible and they're hooked.
Brilliant. And it's during this time that certain business phrases really take on a new meaning, right? Like first mover advantage.
Oh, totally. Microsoft was first in the PC operating system game, gave them a huge edge.
And platform dominance. They built the platform, Windows and everything else had to run on it.
Like they basically invented how we talk about user experience. All those terms, user interface, market adaptation, Microsoft's shaping how people use tech and how we even describe it.
Then along comes Apple, their fancy graphical interface.
Yeah, a lot of folks thought that was curtains for Microsoft.
But Gates, he saw it as an opportunity. Realized graphical was the future. Told his team, make Windows happen.
And Windows wasn't just a pretty face. It was strategic. Took a challenge and turned it into this massive win.
And again, business language is changing. Now we're hearing scaling up, ecosystem development, Microsoft's growing like crazy, building this network of partners.
It's like the whole way we talk about tech and growth, it's all happening in real time, driven by what Microsoft's doing.
The 90s, Microsoft hits peak tech giant status. Windows 95 launch. Not just a product release, it was a full-on event.
Lines around the block to buy software. Hard to imagine that now, right?
Total cultural phenomenon. And strategically, another genius move. Bundling Internet Explorer with Windows, Gates controlled the internet gateway for millions of users.
Super controversial, though, sparked all those debates about fair competition. Was Microsoft getting too powerful?
Totally. But this move also brought a new phrase into the business world. Embrace, extend, and extinguish.
Describing how they'd enter a market, adapt existing tech, then basically take over.
Loved by some, hated by others. But there's no denying it worked. By 98, they beat General Electric to become the most valuable company in the world. Not just selling products anymore. An empire. A whole ecosystem.
Yes, synergy and vertical integration, all those buzzwords became like the holy grail for other businesses trying to copy Microsoft's success.
But that level of success comes with scrutiny. Late 90s, the antitrust case against Microsoft, landmark legal battle, changed how we understand monopoly power.
You had to rethink business language itself. How do we talk about innovation, competition, and market dominance in the digital age?
In that case, it still shapes how we think about antitrust law and tech's role in society.
It's huge implications. But even with all that going on, Gates was already thinking about his next act. Something just as impactful, but totally different.
He was about to go from software to saving the world, basically. And you know what? He was going to do it by, once again, changing the language we use to talk about the world's biggest problems.
It's kind of mind-blowing, right? At the top of the tech world, Gates decides to switch gears completely. Could have just chilled, enjoyed the billions.
But nope, he takes on global issues, poverty, disease. There's a whole other side to him.
And he wasn't just signing checks, you know. This was strategic philanthropy. The Gates Foundation, he starts it with Melinda in 2000, became known for being data-driven, metrics-obsessed.
Business principles applied to saving the world.
Totally. He'd talk about catalytic philanthropy, strategic giving, making sure every dollar had an impact.
Like, let's treat philanthropy like a business. Clear goals, measurable results, efficiency is king.
Exactly. And that approach, it spread. Other foundations started copying, talking about social return on investment, venture philanthropy, all Gates-influenced terms.
He was changing how philanthropy worked and how we talked about it.
Big time. And the impact is huge. By 2023, the Gates Foundation had given away, get this, over $60 billion. Vaccines, education, you name it. Saved countless lives, improved millions more.
It's hard to even grasp the scale. And it all goes back to that vision, that strategic mind. Whether it's software or global health, the approach is the same.
And the ripple effects, right. The Giving Pledge. He co-founds it with Warren Buffett. Gets all these billionaires pledging to give away most of their wealth.
Incredible legacy. Not just doing it himself, but inspiring others.
Now, gotta acknowledge, right, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Microsoft's tactics back in the day, that embrace, extend, extinguish thing.
Yeah, got him in hot water with competitors, regulators.
Some folks said they were stifling competition, becoming a monopoly.
True. But Gates, he's always been super competitive, driven to win.
And you gotta give him credit. He could adapt when he needed to. Remember how fast he pivoted Microsoft towards the internet when they were falling behind?
Yeah, not afraid to admit mistakes, learn from them. Important quality for any leader, especially in tech where things move so fast.
Absolutely. So, controversies aside, there's no denying the impact, right? Both with business and philanthropy.
A complex dude, that's for sure. Challenged and changed how we understand business, tech, and giving back. And his story's still going, so who knows what's next?
Now, I want to talk about something I find super interesting. How Gates approached innovation. He didn't just make products. He, reinvented how software was developed.
Yeah, whole process, right.
Take Windows 10, for example. Wasn't a hit right away, but Gates saw the potential, kept investing, and bam, most popular OS on the planet.
That long-term vision again, sticking with it even when things get tough.
And Microsoft Office, total game changer. He realized people needed these productivity tools. Working together seamlessly didn't exist before.
Smart move. Made Office work way easier, helped Microsoft dominate.
And Gates wasn't just the ideas guy. He got into the nitty-gritty, reviewing code, giving feedback to engineers. High standards, man.
So a programmer at heart, even a CEO.
Oh, yeah. Deep understanding of the tech, passionate about making great stuff. And his attention to detail. Legendary. Emails at 3 a.m. pointing out tiny code errors.
Sounds intense.
It was. Not everyone could handle it. Long hours, high pressure. But it attracted the best talent, you know? People who wanted to work on the cutting edge, learn from the best.
And it paid off.
Yeah.
Microsoft kept pumping out innovative products known for quality and reliability.
Absolutely. They pushed the boundaries of what software could do. And let's talk about going global. Gates didn't want to rule just America. He wanted the whole world.
And he did it by being both savvy and sensitive to different cultures.
Exactly. Look how they entered Japan. Didn't try to force the American way. Set up a separate company, almost like a local business.
Smart move. Respecting the way things are done, help them succeed where other Western companies struggled.
And there's this 70-30 rule Gates used. 70% of Microsoft was standardized globally, but 30% was adapted to local needs.
More than just translation, right?
Yeah.
Understanding local culture, laws, what users actually wanted, making sure products were functional and relevant.
Huge. A lot of companies still struggle with that balance, global versus local.
And then those emerging markets like China, India, software piracy was rampant, right?
Big problem. But instead of fighting it head on, Gates kind of let it slide at first, let Microsoft spread through informal channels.
So he was ignoring piracy.
It was a gamble. He knew those markets were still developing, formal agreements wouldn't work.
Playing the long game again.
Yep. Figured as those economies grew, people would start paying for legit software. And guess what? He was right. As things matured, they brought in the licensing, and those markets became huge for Microsoft.
Thinking outside the box, adapting to the situation.
And Gates also understood the importance of government, building relationships with leaders around the world.
Realized they needed government support to succeed, especially in places like Europe, Asia.
He was practically a diplomat,
Yeah.
meeting with heads of state, negotiating trade deals. Tech and politics were getting intertwined, and he knew how to play that game.
It's crazy how he juggled it all, right?
Ah.
Programmer, CEO, marketer, strategist, diplomat.
A total Renaissance man. That mix of skills is what made him so effective.
But no company's immune to crisis, right? Even Microsoft under Gates had their share. Lawsuits, security breaches.
But what's interesting is how he handled them. No panicking, no rash moves, calm, assessed the situation, came up with a plan.
That big antitrust lawsuit in the late 90s, that was the biggest, could have destroyed the company.
A lot of people thought they were done for. But Gates, he fought back. In court, in the media, argued that Microsoft was actually good for consumers. Breaking them up would stifle innovation.
And it worked, to a degree. They settled, had to make some changes, but they survived.
Hard-won victory. Showed how tough Gates was, how well he could navigate those legal and political minefields.
Then there was that internet tidal wave memo, remember?
Yeah.
1995, Gates realizes, oh, we've missed the boat on this internet thing. Time to shake things up.
Pretty amazing self-awareness, right? He admitted they messed up, then laid out this bold plan to embrace the internet.
And it worked. Microsoft went all in on internet stuff, became a major player.
You could change course when he had to, admit mistakes, take bold action. That's leadership.
Early 2000s, the security crisis. Windows is everywhere, which means it's a target for hackers, viruses.
Yeah, big problem. Gates goes all in again, launches the Trustworthy Computing Initiative, stops all new product development, throws thousands of engineers at security.
Expensive move in the short term, but the right one. Showed they were serious about protecting users, their data.
Helped rebuild trust in Windows, which is essential, right?
Totally. So, yeah, Gates faced a ton of challenges, but he always seemed to find a way through, often came out stronger on the other side.
His crisis management, there's a pattern. First, stay calm, no emotional decisions.
Second, gather info, understand the situation before acting.
Then communicate clearly, keep everyone in the loop. Employees, investors, the public, no secrets.
And finally, be decisive. Make the tough calls, take action, don't hesitate.
Those crisis skills were a big part of Microsoft's success. They weathered the storms, kept the reputation, came out on top.
Succession planning, something a lot of founders struggle with. But Gates, he nailed it. Starts planning his exit in 2000, when Microsoft's at its peak.
Wow, that's early. Most founders hold on for dear life. But Gates was thinking long-term. Knew he wouldn't be CEO forever, wanted a smooth transition.
And he didn't just pick someone and peace out. He built a system for developing leaders, groomed Steve Ballmer for years.
Smart. And he did it gradually. Stepped back, bit by bit, but stayed available for advice. Didn't want to leave a vacuum.
Easing out, letting Ballmer take the reins.
Exactly. Well planned. Made the transition seamless when Gates finally stepped down as CEO in 2008.
And even then, he stayed involved as chairman, giving advice. Didn't just walk away from the company he built.
Shows his dedication. Right. Wanted Microsoft to keep thriving.
So yeah, textbook succession planning, strategic thinking, long-term vision, putting the company first.
Now let's zoom out a bit. Think about the bigger picture. Microsoft's impact on the whole digital revolution. They didn't just make software. They changed how we live, work, interact with the world.
Remember when computers were these giant, scary things? Only scientists used them. Gates had this vision, a computer on every desk in every home, and he made it happen.
It's hard to overstate how much Microsoft changed the workplace. Typewriters, carbon copies, filing cabinets, gone. Microsoft Office with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, it all became digital.
More efficient, productive, connected. New ways to collaborate, share info.
And it wasn't just the Office. Education, entertainment, communication, Microsoft was everywhere.
Windows became the standard in schools. Microsoft games like Solitaire, Minesweeper introduced millions to computers.
And MSN Messenger totally changed how we kept in touch.
Microsoft even shaped business culture. Their story, the garage startup turned global giant. It became the dream for every entrepreneur.
The idea that anyone with a good idea could make it big in tech, it was super inspiring.
And Microsoft's success made software legit. Showed it could be just as valuable as hardware, even more so.
Gates' impact on startup culture is huge. Microsoft became the model.
Showed the world you could build a tech empire from nothing. inspired a whole generation of entrepreneurs.
And they provided the tools, too. So many startups built their early stuff using Microsoft tech. It was everywhere.
Windows became the standard, which actually had a unifying effect, right? Businesses all over the world using the same software.
Created a common language, broke down barriers, made globalization easier.
But maybe the most important thing, Gates made information accessible. Before Windows and Office, you needed special skills, expensive equipment just to use a computer.
Microsoft changed that. Put those tools in everyone's hands. Individuals, businesses, everyone could harness the power of tech.
It was a revolution. Access to knowledge for everyone. And that changed everything. Education, healthcare, the economy.
And the ripple effects are still going. Cloud computing, mobile, AI, they all build on that foundation of accessible computing that Gates championed.
He didn't just change how we use computers. He changed our expectations.
Made us believe that technology could solve problems, make life easier, connect us in ways we never thought possible.
That's a powerful legacy.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to get into something a bit more nitty-gritty, the evolution of Microsoft's business models under Gates. It's a story of adaptation, thinking ahead, and just plain smart strategy.
In the early days, software was kind of an afterthought, something you got for free with the hardware. Gates saw it differently. He knew software was valuable, made it the heart of their business.
That was a huge shift in thinking. Software went from freebie to a product worth paying for, laid the groundwork for the whole software industry we know today.
Their decision to sell licenses for MS-DOS, people thought they were nuts back then, but it was a brilliant move, totally changed the game.
Risky, but it paid off big time. Gave them the revenue to grow, innovate.
Gates was always thinking ahead, always looking for ways to create sustainable revenue, build long-term value.
Like when they switched from single purchase licenses to volume licensing for businesses.
He got it. Building those long-term relationships was more important than just making a quick buck.
And volume licensing. That's how they became the kings of enterprise software. Predictable revenue, money to invest in R&D.
And Gates was a master of pricing. He brought the razors and blades model to software.
The razor was Windows, licensed cheap to PC makers. The blades. The software people needed to use on Windows, like Office. That's where the real money was.
So smart. Windows became affordable, gained market share, and then they made bank on the software everyone had to use.
Win-win.
And their business model kept evolving. They moved beyond selling individual products to businesses. They built whole ecosystems, interconnected products working together seamlessly.
Windows Server, Exchange Server, SharePoint, you were locked in once you went with Microsoft.
That's how they dominated enterprise software. Recurring revenue through maintenance, upgrades, brilliant.
Loyal customer base, no reason to switch. And the way he managed relationships with PC makers was key too.
Oh yeah, making Windows the default OS. Turn those manufacturers into their sales force.
Every new PC came with Windows pre-installed. Guaranteed revenue, solidified their dominance.
Genius. He made his competitors into his distributors.
Now, the big shift to subscriptions, that mostly happened after Gates left as CEO, but he laid the groundwork.
Those enterprise agreements they introduced in the 90s, basically early versions of SaaS, software as a service.
He saw the potential in recurring revenue. Software delivered as a service, not a one-time purchase.
Cloud computing, he saw it coming before most. Started building that foundation way back then.
He was also a pioneer of the platform economy. Windows wasn't just an OS, it was a playground for developers to make apps.
Open platform led to this massive ecosystem of developers, apps, users. Everyone benefited, especially Microsoft.
More apps made Windows more attractive to users, which brought in more developers. A virtuous cycle.
Brilliant strategy. They tapped into the collective brainpower of the developer community.
Under Gates, Microsoft even dipped their toes into hardware, right? The Xbox.
Not just about new markets, but integrated business models. Hardware, software, services, all working together.
The Xbox, with online gaming, subscriptions, showed they could use their software expertise to make cool hardware that brought in recurring revenue.
Successful move into gaming. Showed they could innovate beyond just software.
And finally, the way they handled intellectual property, patents. Totally revolutionary.
They went hard on patents, realized how valuable IP was as a business asset.
Protected their innovations and created new revenue streams through licensing.
Other tech companies followed their lead, showed how important IP was in the digital age.
Smart move. Profit from your innovations. Encourage others to innovate too.
So yeah, it's been quite a journey, this deep dive into Bill Gates and Microsoft, from a tiny startup to a tech giant, a story of vision, innovation, striving for the best.
And Gates himself. He's left his mark on the world, not just with technology, but with his philanthropy, his leadership.
The scale of his impact is mind-boggling. Revolutionized computing, taking on global problems. It's a story about human potential, how business can be a force for good.
And what makes it even more interesting is how relevant it still is today. The challenges he faced, the rapid changes in tech, managing global operations, that's what businesses and leaders deal with now.
His strategic thinking, adapting to change, always pushing for better, those are timeless qualities, valuable in any industry.
As we head into the next phase of the digital revolution, Gates's legacy is both inspiring and instructive.
He teaches us that success in tech, in anything really, takes vision, innovation, the ability to adapt, and a deep understanding of both technology and people.
It's been amazing exploring this multifaceted story. The early days, the rise of the giant, the evolution of business models, the impact of their innovations.
We've looked at Gates's leadership, how he handled crises, planned his exit, and his massive influence on tech, and how we think about business in the digital age.
But what really stands out is that transition from tech titan to global philanthropist. It says a lot about his character, his vision, wanting to use his success to make the world a better place.
The Gates Foundation, their data-driven approach to solving problems like poverty, disease, lack of education, it's a model for how to do philanthropy right.
A reminder that business isn't just about money. It's about using your resources, your smarts, to make a real difference.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what are your takeaways? What insights resonated with you?
How can we apply Gates's strategic thinking, his adaptability, his commitment to excellence in our own lives?
And how can we, like Gates, use business and technology to build a better future for ourselves, for everyone? You know, it's kind of wild to think back when Gates started, computers were these like niche things. Now they're everywhere.
Right. And what always gets me is how many times he bet big. Like, everyone thought he was nuts.
Oh, yeah. The IBM deal. Classic example. Back then, hardware was king. But Gates, he saw software was the future, went all in.
And that one decision is like domino effect, set the stage for everything Microsoft became.
He was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers, you know. Controlling the OS, the software running the whole show. That was the key.
And he didn't just get the tech, he got the business side too. Building that ecosystem, the partners, the developers, crucial to their success.
He knew how to make everyone win, as long as Microsoft was on top.
And don't forget the marketing genius, creating buzz, making people excited about software. The Windows 95 launch. Masterclass.
Software release as a cultural event. It's wild.
People lining up for Windows like it was the new iPhone.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine now.
Totally. But that's Gates. He understood branding, storytelling, connecting with people emotionally, even for something as like technical as software.
But it wasn't all smoke and mirrors, right?
Yeah.
Windows 95 was a big deal. User-friendly, that graphical interface. Computers went mainstream.
Changed the game. Paved the way for the internet, everything that came after.
Crazy to think one operating system had that much impact.
It all goes back to Gates' vision and his ability to make it happen.
So as we wrap this up, what's the one big thing you'll take away from Bill Gates' story?
That's a good one. I think for me, it's think big, be bold. Gates wasn't afraid to take risks, go against the grain, bet on what might be. That's what made him a success.
He didn't just play the game, he wanted to change the rules.
Exactly. And his story also reminds us it's not just about the money, right? It's about making a difference. Gates using his wealth to tackle big problems, inspiring others to do the same.
Powerful legacy to leave behind.
For sure.
Well, that's our deep dive into the amazing journey of Bill Gates and Microsoft. Hope you enjoyed it, learned a thing or two.
We'd love to hear what you think. What surprised you? What inspired you? What are you taking away from all this?
Head over to our website, social media, leave a comment. And if you like the show, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends.
Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you next time on Business English Success Stories Podcast.